नमस्कार. शाकमा कनेक्टच्या आर्ट मंत्रामध्ये तुमचं सर्वांचं स्वागत आहे. आज आपला 5वा वेबिनार आपण सुरू करत आहोत. सॉरी, 4था वेबिनार आहे आपला आज. परमेश्वर राजू सर आपले आज गेस्ट आहे. ते हैदराबादहून आपल्याला लाईव्ह आलेले आहेत. ते तुमच्यासाठी आणि कॅलिग्राफीला एक देव माणूस म्हणता येईल असे एक प्रजापती आपलं परमेश्वर राजू सर, त्याच्या नावामध्येच परमेश्वर आहे, त्यामुळे आपण ते देवच आहेत. आणि तुम्हाला आर्ट मंत्राबद्दल तर सगळं माहितीच आहे. शाकमा कनेक्टने शासकीय कला महाविद्यालयाचं सुवर्ण महोत्सव वर्षानिमित्त आपण आर्ट मंत्र हे एक वेबिनार सुरू केलेलं आहे. शाकमा कनेक्टचे जे माजी विद्यार्थी आहेत, आज जगामध्ये सगळ्याकडे शाकमा कनेक्टचे माजी विद्यार्थी पोहोचलेले आहेत. ते कुठे कुठे आहेत आणि ते काय काय कामं करतात, त्या आज लॉकडाऊनमुळे आपल्याला एक ऑनलाईनचं एक माध्यम मिळालेलं आहे. त्या निमित्ताने आपण एक हे सुरू केलेलं आहे पूर्ण वेबिनार. तर परमेश्वर राजू सरांचं बद्दल सगळ्यांना माहितीच आहे, त्यांच्या कामाबद्दल पण सगळ्यांना माहितीच आहे. आपण जे त्यांचे पोस्टर केले किंवा त्यावर पण खूप जणांनी गेस्ट केले, कोण असणार. तर मी श्याम तापसकर सरांना त्यांना एक विनंती करतो की त्यांनी त्यांचं इंट्रोडक्शन करून द्यावं. तापसकर सर.
नमस्कार मित्रांनो. आज आपल्यामध्ये पुसापती परमेश्वर राजू एक जागतिक कीर्तीचे कॅलिग्राफीचे खूप मानलेले एक अशी पर्सनॅलिटी आहे, जी की देवाच्या कृपेने आमच्या शासकीय कला महाविद्यालयामध्ये त्यांनी ऍडमिशन घेतली 1980 साली. त्यांचे वडील आर्मीमध्ये औरंगाबादला उच्चपदस्थ अधिकारी होते आणि त्याच काळामध्ये त्यांनी स्कूल ऑफ आर्ट मध्ये ऍडमिशन घेतली. स्कूल ऑफ आर्ट मध्ये आल्यानंतर त्यांच्या अत्यंत हसतमुख मनमिळावू आणि कलेबद्दल प्रचंड जाण असणाऱ्या स्वभावामुळे त्यांनी टायपोग्राफी, इलस्ट्रेशन अशा वेगळ्या विषयांमध्ये खूप विशेष प्रावीण्य हे केलेलं आहे आणि मिळवलेलं आहे. आणि त्यांचं औरंगाबाद बद्दलचं प्रेम हे खूप 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 दिवसापासून अजूनही तसंच आहे. औरंगाबाद ते आजही खूप आनंदाने येतात औरंगाबादला आणि त्यांचं औरंगाबादच्या बद्दल अटॅचमेंट फार जास्त आहे. त्यांनी औरंगाबादमध्ये त्यांचे करिअर सुरू झाल्यानंतर हैदराबादला त्यांनी मोठ्या प्रमाणामध्ये विशेष त्यांचं नाव कमावलेलं आहे. मोठ्या मोठ्या ऍड एजन्सी मध्ये ते काम केलेलं आहे. मोठमोठ्या आर्ट गॅलरी त्यांनी स्वतः तयार करून मेंटेन केलेल्या आहेत. त्याच्यासोबतच त्यांनी औरंगाबादच्या सोबत पण स्नेह त्यांचा टिकून ठेवलेला आहे. औरंगाबादमध्ये येताना ते पैठणीवरती विशेष स्वतःच्या कॅलिग्राफीच्या वेगळ्या फॉर्मला त्यांनी पैठणीमध्ये कन्वर्ट केलं. त्या पैठणीमध्ये त्या लुमरकडे जाऊन नवल्याला त्या ट्रेडिशनल लुमरकडे जाऊन त्याच्याकडे रेग्युलर चक्रा मारून काम करून घेतं आणि उत्कृष्ट असे त्यांनी पैठणी सिल्क मध्ये सुंदर सुंदर फॉर्म त्यांनी तयार केले आणि ते जागतिक दर्जाच्या मोठमोठ्या एक्झिबिशन्स मध्ये त्यांनी मांडले आणि त्याच्याबद्दल त्यांची खूप वाहवा पण झालेली आहे. तसंच त्यांनी औरंगाबादमधनं वेगळ्या प्रकारचे फॉर्म बनवून घेतले. जसं की खामगावला त्यांनी एका मोठ्या ह्याच्या सिल्वर स्मिथ कडे जाऊन त्याच्याकडून नाणी बनवून घेतली. नंतर इथे कॉपर प्लेट, मोठमोठ्या कॉपर प्लेट मध्ये कॅलिग्राफी सोबत त्यांनी इचिंग करून घेतलेलं आहे. असं त्यांनी केलं आणि ह्याच्यासोबत त्यांनी औरंगाबादला मराठवाडा विद्यापीठामधनं 2 विषयांवरती विशेष प्रावीण्य मिळवलं MFM मध्ये. त्याच्यामधला एक विषय आहे टायपोग्राफी आणि दुसरा विषय त्यांचा आहे इलस्ट्रेशन. त्याच्यामध्ये त्यांनी विशेष प्रावीण्य मिळवले आहे. असे हे रघु सर आज आपल्या समोर आहेत. हे आपल्या सगळ्यांचं भाग्य मी समजतो. आता आपल्याला मोहित सर त्यांची अजून ओळख करून देतील.
Hi and welcome to the 4th webinar series of Art Mantra conducted by Shakama Connect. Friends, if we define calligraphy only as a beautiful handwriting, maybe we are wrong. Today we have with us Mr. POOSAPATI Parameshwar Raju, also known as Mr. Raghu. Mr. Raghu is a well-known figure in the contemporary pictographic calligraphy across the globe, and we are proud that he is trained in the traditions of our Government School of Art, Aurangabad. We are fortunate for the privilege he has given to us and to access his magnum opus. Now, he will be explaining the principle of form and the order of the sacred geometry, the traditional grid, the secret recipe of his splendid works of art, the splendors that depict our rich heritage and Indian traditional cultures. So, friends, let us all stick till the end of the webinar and learn how he decodes his secrets. So, here's the living legend and the fine artist of the master strokes, Mr. Raju Parameshwar. Kishore.
थँक्यू मोहीन, थँक्यू तापसकर सर. परमेश्वर राजीव रघु सर, म्हणजे रघु सरांनी आपण त्यांच्या नावाने त्यांना ओळखतो. रघु सर, मैं आपको दोनों का इंट्रोड्यूस कर दिया. हमें तुम्हारा वेलकम है हमारे वेबिनार में. हमारे नहीं, आपके अपने वेबिनार में आपका वेलकम है. हाँ, तो सर मुझे लगता है ज्यादा समय नहीं लेते. आपका प्रेजेंटेशन हमने देखा है, बहुत सारा टाइम लगेगा, बच्चे के लिए भी बहुत अच्छा होगा. मुझे लगता है क्वेश्चन पूछने के पहले आपने शुरू कर देना. उसके साथ ही हम आपसे ये जानना चाहते हैं कि कॉलेज के लाइफ में आपका भी थोड़ा सा ये बताइए, आपके कॉलेज लाइफ कैसा हुआ है, क्या हुआ है. पहले वो शुरू करके अपन थोड़ा सा आगे जाते हैं फिर प्रेजेंटेशन की तरफ.
ओके, नमस्कारम. It's a pleasure to be with all of you. I am from the batch of 1985 and I came to the art school by mistake. The reason I came by mistake was because I was trained to join the services. I could not join the services due to an accident. And then my father put me in the art school. I didn't know that I was joining the art school. When I joined the art school, it was a very interesting thing which happened. I didn't know that it starts with drawing vegetables, and it took me less than half an hour to finish when the whole day was there to finish the work. Slowly, I realized what the art school was all about. And then after I finished the foundation course, I thought I'll get into design. And that's how I got into applied arts. It was a very interesting thing in the art school because I learned design in Marathi. It was an interesting experience because the way we were taught was, and with explanations and examples, was quite elaborate. And then I had to get back to the library to get equivalent references so that I could study the subject. So much of my work was between the library and the classroom. So that's my background. One thing I would like to remind you all is you don't really require to be an artist to get into an art school. You can, I'm a full-fledged example where I had very little education in art, but I managed to learn design without an art background at all. So let's go back to my presentation. This presentation is an abridged version of the book we are working on the traditional Indian grid. Traditional Indian grid is a grid which is used by all craftsmen in India, knowingly or unknowingly. This is what I was taught or told to by my grandfather when I had taken him around Ellora Caves. He had a good laugh and then he told me the basics of design. And that's when I realized what my family was all about. That till then I didn't know my family background, that it also had a lot of craftsmen and artists in them. After he died, I could not get more information, so I started researching, trying to figure out what this grid is all about. And I stumbled upon small bits of information, and through craftsmen, I could gather that it was a very interesting thing to work on. Without any major calculations, you could just work very peacefully and everyone could use it. So let me share that presentation with you.
Yes, sir.
Has it come?
Yes, sir.
We call it the mechanism of splendor. In India, the grid was always a part of tradition and it has been practiced with the faith to the extent of religious doctrine. It has a large variety in form and application. In the past few centuries, the meaning of the grid has shifted from interface between physical and super physical worlds to interface between physical world and its perception by the rational cognition. Process of creation is an initiation and a sharing knowledge of the craft and information gathered and referred from nature. Listening, seeing, feeling, understanding, and experiencing the physical forms and worshipping this source of creation gave an immense joy of being part of it. It was a source of wonder and an aesthetic which made living a wonderful experience. Life in nature and its adaptation to its surroundings was a visual experience. This knowledge led to create things. The basics were from nature, the geometry to the existence and the functions of the five elements made creating of objects with added functionality a joyful experience. From making of houses and shrines to toys for children to weaving, to cultivation and gathering of food to making of vessels for cooking and using fire as a source of energy have a reference in nature. Looking for an answer or an idea is unique. People in various geographical regions have created and adapted things for their requirements, which are related and refer to their surroundings. Hence, the change of aesthetic and functionality of things created by them. There is so much creation around us. Being part of this creation helps in understanding nature better. One tends to look inside oneself and share that experience. The experience is different, hence the variation in the same idea, which makes creating an object exciting. This started a process of trade with and within the communities. The exercise in this set is creating of products and images from shared information from nature. I have tried to use this aesthetic in blending it into the narrative of nature. Here I would like to just bring into your notice of our experiences of staying in a village,
रघु सर,
walking on to another village, or
रघु सर,
traveling from one to... Yes?
यस प्लीज प्लीज, आपका स्क्रीन
हाँ,
शेयर प्रॉपर नहीं हुआ है, स्क्रीन शेयर थोड़ा विंडो दिख नहीं रहा है, स्क्रीन शेयर
अच्छा अच्छा अच्छा।
एक बार प्लीज विंडोज का ये कर देना प्रॉपरली. यस
आया?
यस, पूरा फुल स्क्रीन कर देना एक बार. फुल स्क्रीन करना सर. फुल स्क्रीन करना, उसको पहले ओपन कर लीजिए आप उधर से.
Has it come? Oh no. आया? Kishore? Can you hear me, Kishore? Hello? Hello?
यस सर, परफेक्ट, नो
हाँ,
प्रॉब्लम,
ठीक है।
गुड.
So we come. So what happens is when we see traveling, we see that people wear different turbans, different clothes, different food habits, different architecture, different vessels, different bamboo stuff, different clothes. All this is because the craftsman is taking references from the nature surrounding him. We tend to see unique things, and these started becoming commodities because people started sharing these products with other communities, and a trade started from place to place. Now we go coming back to the presentation. Now I'll take you to through the whole process of how we do this small uh, design grid so that it can be used for multiple purposes. We start with the circle and line. We say that the circle is a feminine principle. This is more to understand what the elements are all about. The circle is the feminine principle. It makes you look towards the center. It is static and it has space. The line is masculine principle and it is not creative until used. It is dynamic, free into running into space, and is free. Oh. Yeah. Now there are two types of seeing. One is you see the outline as just the linear surface, and you see it as a whole. So there's a linear surface and there is a solid surface. The circle is the universe. The breath of life is contained in its form. The circle consists of center and has a boundary. The center is supported, and this particular center is something where the energy emits out of. So we have the circle is divided into two vertical lines, the fire and the water. And while the resulting four areas are four corners of the universe and the four directions of northeast, southeast, southwest, and northwest. Now, the given space, the circle, is divided into four parts. Then again, it is turned into a dynamic square divided into another four parts. So we get the 8 directions. The vertical line is the fire, the horizontal line is water, and the diagonal lines are winds. And where they join is the bindu. In the Indian tradition, we don't have 8 directions, but we have 10 directions. The ninth, and the 10th direction are one going straight up towards the skies, and the 10th direction is going down. The line is the support of the composition, the water line, on which one builds the image, which corresponds to the elements and the gods. Now, when I talk about gods and elements and all that, it is purely to understand how people in the earlier days used to relate it to everything related to nature and gods. So they gave names which were related to them. These straight lines are the rays of light. As the Creator divided the world, from these intersecting lines, square is formed. So you see north, east, south, and west. This is one square, and the other square is northwest, northeast, southeast, and southwest. And when this square is formed, we call it Ganesha. So square is represented as Ganesha. So when we are doing any design, we consider that given space as the most auspicious and divine space. So whatever we do in that divine space, when we call it a divine space and we try to do something in that, then we try to do something which we are capable of doing as the best. So that is the reason behind it. So we call it as Ganesha. Now this is a outline drawing of the design, and this is called Khila Pinjara. It has the square, the circle, and the outer square. The reason for the circle is that the human eye sees only in a circular space. It does not see rectangular mass areas. Wherever we want to see, we only focus into that area and the surrounding area, which is a circular area. Though we see a mass of it, but we only see where we focus. So that's the reason why in this square area we draw a circle. The idea of Trihuta, there are two triangles. The triangle, again, like the circle, we can either see the outline of the triangle or as a solid triangle. The triangle represents the concepts of fire and humanity, verticality, the characteristic of the human species. It is also believed to be the axis on which the universe revolves around. The union of the two opposites of fire and water, that creation arises, and it is by their interaction that it is ceaselessly vitalized and maintained. This particular symbol is called the Akarshani Yantra. Some people call it as the male and female, but it is actually the fire and water, which are the elements because of which creation happened. The grid is a matrix of 5 lines by 5, making 16 identical squares or rectangles. So you have the divine light, the life energy, the reproductive energy, and earth. The bottom four boxes are the earth, they represent earth. Then the reproductive energy is the next 4 boxes. Then the life energy and the divine light. Now, when I come to the wind, the air, the fire, the water, here I would like you to come to, I would like to share the 5 temples in Tamil Nadu and 4 temples in Tamil Nadu and 1 temple in Andhra, where we worship the 5 elements. The first one is earth, which is at it is the Ekambareshwara temple in Kanchi, where Parvati comes down and worships Shiva with the shivling made of sand under a mango tree. That is the story. The reason why I'm giving you these references is because whatever I'll be explaining to you is based on the southern tradition. And in these 5 temples, you'll have references of how energies have been um, depicted and how geometric forms have been created in relation to these geometric forms, for these natural forms. This is Jambukeshwara in Srirangam, which represents water. And this is the place where Shiva and Parvati have a discourse on various subjects, and one of them being how the earth was created, and the universe was created. This is Arunachaleshwara, the temple of fire, where the Shiva comes out as a big pillar of fire when Vishnu and Brahma, they have a problem trying to figure out who is the better one. So Shiva asks them to find the starting and end of the fire pillar. So that is the story. Srikalahasti is in Andhra Pradesh. It's called the Srikalahasteshwara, where the elephant, the snake, and the spider worshipped Shiva over different periods of time. And this is the place where you have air worship as a natural element. And then you have Tilai Natarajar at Chidambaram, where Shiva is worshipped as space. This is where a lot of things like related to dance and architecture are depicted in the temple. This is one temple where we don't have any idol, and they have an empty Garbhagudi, in front of which is Trishul, on which the Bilvapatra garland is put, and that is worshipped. Coming back to the grid, As I was telling you, the bottom row of four squares is from the foot to the knee is earth. Then the next is the reproductive energy, then life energy and divine light. Now coming to, I'm just going through fast so that I just talk to you about the basic elements. Now we're coming to the basic point is the Bindu. Bindu is just a dot, doesn't make any sense with just one dot. It starts reacting when there's another dot or another element in the space. They start reacting to each other. It's a invisible line. So we see some energy flow between one point to another point. When this particular bindu expands in space, it forms a circle in a linear space. And when it opens up in a space, which is cubic space, it becomes a sphere. So we have the linear surface and a spherical surface. So these two are basics. So in Indian tradition, we have the circle and sphere as basics. Now understanding the construction of a triangle. When this particular bindu starts moving from one place to the other, it becomes a line. And when two lines intersect, you get a stronger bindu where there's more energy which is formed, or when there's a light source, it becomes brighter. And when this has to activate, then you need a third line to divide it, or it has to go through that bindu. And when these three lines move away from each other, form a triangular space, and this triangular space is the next basic form. So the combination of fire and water, or Shiva and Shakti, is the Akarshani Yantra. The two triangles, when are combined to form a square, then the square is called Ganesha, which is the divine space. Now, in our prayers or in the way we worship the Panchayatanas, or the five gods together, the gods are defined in basic forms. The first one is Devi, which is an inverted triangle. The vertical triangle is Shiva. Surya is a disk. Ganesha is square. And Vishnu is a disk, and you could say Surya is a circle with solid color. The way we construct in the Indian tradition is either with a bamboo and two nails attached to it in the corners, or a string with two nails. Now, what happens here is the custom of first having a marking. Say if it is done on paper, it's a different thing, but the same thing when it is done on land surface. A peg is put on earth early morning before sunrise, and then they wait for the sun to come out, and they worship the sun. As they worship the sun with bhajans and kirtans which follow, they start marking the shadow which marks the west. And they again come back marking the center, where the shadow falls exactly under the stump, that is during the mid afternoon. And then again, as the sun sets, they mark the east. Now, this is never a straight line with the peg. This is always a curved line. It's not a straight line. And because of this curved line, they draw a vertical line to cut two equidistant points from the base of the stump from where the marking is done. And that becomes the unit of measure. So that's how we mark on the land. Now, there's a bindu. You have a nail here, there's a bindu here, so we put a nail there. There's another nail here, and that is what is used to draw the circle. Then you have how you draw the polygons. So divide. These are basic geometry. There's nothing very serious things about it. Pure basic geometries to draw polygons, drawing of the equilateral triangle, then creating of a square, drawing a circle, because you can't draw a square on a surface by just measuring, because you need to have accurate measurements. And that's the reason why circles are used, so that the measurements becomes very easy. Now, because of this tradition of marking on the ground level the east and the west, and later the north and south, and as the sun position keeps moving throughout the year, we have these interesting things which happen in our temples, or certain things which are very unique to certain areas. And because of that particular day when the construction is done, the sun behaves in a particular way when it again comes back to that position. So that is the reason for the special, things which happen in our temples. Now, understanding the construction in nature. Now, what happens is, now here we need to understand as designers to go around seeing places. You can't be sitting in one place. You need to see nature. You need to see the water flow. You need to see the way the wind blows. You need to feel the air. You need to see the plants. You need to see the rocks. You need to see how, because we always see this with an emotion. We add an emotion to it. What we see, what we feel, and how we relate things or how we explain is pure emotion. So we need to be part of the nature so that we understand the construction of nature. Here I'm just taking you through some basic forms of flowers and some leaves, just to give an example. These are some of these pictures have been given to me by Ravi Deshmukh, who's a good friend from my class. This is a three-petaled petal flower, the four-petal flower. Just see the construction so that when I take you to the basic construction of line drawing, how I've used these, or how our ancestors have used these for basic design construction makes sense. That's the lotus, widely used in our design. This is the Bilva Patra, the same tree. See the construction of the tree leaves and how the tree is constructed. It's grown. And if you actually see the stems, the branches, they go again in threes. There's the bark of a palm wood tree, then the flowers again. These are different petal flowers, and when we do the grid, you'll see how these have come automatically on it. The five petal flower. This is the what is that? Bargat. Bargat. This is what you have to see in nature, what's happening, and how your emotions, how they increase your emotions, or how you tend to emote, because it is only in that nature that you start seeing, and then you start relating to things from nature to our emotions. Now, coming back to the grid, it's the vertical line connecting the centers, is say this and this, A and B, C and D. So how you get a square, how you get a 45-degree square. These are purely with the nail and two nails and a string. How you do an octagon and how octagon becomes dynamic, and how you get the other sides of it. Again, this is purely four sides: north, south, east, west. The four other directions of northeast, southwest, southeast, southwest, and northwest. Because we always related two links in nature. The space division of the octagon, in which inscribed a square and a circle. The construction of an equilateral triangle. Pure basic geometry. There's nothing very complex about it. A grid of 9 equilateral triangles. These are all references from nature. This construction of a hexagon If you see the way the circles are arranged, 3 circles, and then when you again turn them, you get the other points, and at each point again you can draw an hexagon. Intersection of 6 circles and how it can be repeated at each point. This construction of a hexagon. Construction of a 5-pointed star. This construction of a 10-pointed star. How the basic circle can be used to create so many patterns is more interesting. Then construction of the 10-pointed star and how the resulting floral pattern. In the Indian tradition, what has happened is when we started dividing these and getting these newer forms, we started using them to put some decorative element there so that it became a complex mandala. Mandala is a geometric pattern with a lot of aesthetics or with a lot of emotion to depict a certain view or an idea. The measure of 5. The measure of 5 is interesting because it is how we take the palm as a measuring tool and how this has been used by the craftsman. For example, the potter. The potter uses it knowingly or unknowingly to get different proportions. The proportions are 1:4, 2:3, 3:2, or 4:1. It's like this: 1:4, 2:3, 3:2, and 4:1. And the variations to that are 1:2:2. So 1:2:2, or 2:2:1. So you can have your own variations and create something new. With the same method, the cooking vessels of the Jagannath temple in Puri are made. There is a vessel with a plate on top, is the covering plate, and the Shanku chakras are marked because prasad is cooked in them. This is another cooking pot from the Jagannath temple, and where on the top left corner here, you see the grid and how that grid has been used in these. I had to bring this grid here before explaining the grid, because here is something where the potter is using the measurements of 5, creating something beautiful, and the same thing which can be put again on the grid to create many other products. There's the water pot for the Jagannath temple. There's another water pot. There's the gullak, where you put money, save it for a festival time, break it, and give it to the temple. Now the rhythmic measure. Rhythmic measure is, in the Tamil tradition, we have the expanse of the palm from the center finger tip to the thumb tip is the kai chan. Kai is hand. So you have length of the face, the way it is. The length of the kai chan is the length of the palm, with the length of the palm, and then corresponding length of the face and hand. The measurements are done in the thickness of the phalanges in the fingers, either this or the thickness. So what happens is, depending on the size of the sculpture which is being made, and depending on the structure of the hand of the craftsman, tools are made, because he has to make the tools in such a way that he can use the tools very comfortably. So the tools done for a particular craftsman are different. So at every given point of time, tools made for one craftsman will be different from another set of tools made for another craftsman. But strangely, what has happened is, over a period of time now, one set of tools are used by everyone. So there is a difference of the emotion which is, used while cutting down a stone, because of the comfort levels of a tool. makes a lot of difference. So there is a difference in terms of finish and the proportions. Face in the shape of a Tamil letter Va and the mango shaped face. These are all very typically South Indian measurements, and these vary as you go up north and the east. There's an egg faced face and the sesame seed face. Then you have Meenakshi, that is the eye, fish in the shape, eye in the shape of fish, and eye in the shape of lotus. Then you have the waist following the shape of a dambu, and another shape which is the shape of Vajram. Bamboo for reference for the arm and the face of the bull for the chest. Now we come to Mugu. Mugu is Rangoli. Mugu is the word we use in South. So Rangoli is representation. We believe in the South that it is a representation of the universe on earth. So in front of your house or in temple courtyards, these are drawn just to energize the places. And then what happened was, over a period of time, they started using rice flour so that animals and insects could also eat that. It was more of an offering of food to animals and insects, plus to represent the universe in that particular place, to energize that particular space. So these are something which are very old designs, which all had a name. So we have put the names. This is swastika, this Nabhi Kamala, this Chandu pattern. This is from Maharashtra called the Gathoda pattern. This somehow during the period of the Marathas when they came down to Tanjore, that's when this design came to Tamil Nadu. Anantasana, this again came from Maharashtra to Tamil Nadu. Vaishwadeva Kunda pattern, that is, this is the kund which is on which the fire, you do the homam and things like that, and fire is worshipped. Now we come to grammar of yantra. Now whatever you have seen, I've just given you a little bit of information so that when you're combining all this, you found the yantra. Now the grammar of yantra is based on some very basic symbols, which when you go to a temple or when you see older texts, you could actually understand what it all means. The bindu is this bindu, so it is static. So when there is just a dot, it is static. Expression of a bindu through the radius is desire. Is again we are trying to bring in emotion to it. A vertical line is desire, activity, dynamic. A horizontal line is stability, shortest distance between 2 points. Then you have the static bindu. Then you have the nada or dynamic sound. You have the upward movement, the downward movement here. This is addition, this subtraction, division. These are all basic symbols which we have used in our mathematics, but these are used in design also. Where if you go to these temples where I've told you about these 5 temples, you'll get a lot of reference of these. And this is expression and dynamic. This is static earth. This is dynamic earth. Balance between static and dynamic. This is restricted expression, static, and this is restricted expression, dynamic. The top one is equilibrium, this dynamic upward movement, this fire, male, this water, female. This is equilibrium when these two are together. When they are of equilateral triangles, it is static. But when it is not equilateral, then there is a sense of movement which generates into that, so it is dynamic. Sorry. And then there is a 5-pointed star, which is the earth. clockwise movement of creation, the swastika in its clockwise movement is creation. The anti-clockwise movement is destruction or dissolution. The swastika with the 4 dots, sorry, and extended in the corners is Ganesha. And in this Ganesha, we also have a representation of Om. And then you have space and expansion. Space is just a circle, and expansion is with lines. Then when you club a little of these, then there's an expression of manifestation. And manifestation is the circular space with the 8 directions. And each direction is represented with a lotus petal. So that becomes the manifestation place, or that is where the energized space is believed to have the maximum energy. Now in Sanskrit, the directions, we know the north, south, east, west is Paschima, Dakshina, Uttara, Ishana, and all that. And now comes the construction of the yantra. This is the basic structure. We have used this structure as something in relation to the gods because we have put an element representing the god in center of these drawings. But this is the basic structure of space division in nature. And this is a representation of Ganesh Yantra, what I was telling you earlier, arriving at the final grid construction. Now that's the square, that's the given space, that's Ganesha, that is the most energized space or the most divine space. We start with an assumption that whatever or whichever place we work on is a divine space, which is divided into verticals and horizontals. So we get 4 spaces, and each circle is representing a direction, the corner. So you have north, south, east, west, and the other 4 directions. So what happens is here we see that when we have these 4 points, each point starts interacting with the other point, because that's the nature. When two bindus are there, they start attracting towards each other, and the source of energy flows between those 2 points, and that's the reason why we join those lines. So here again, we're joining the energy lines in a given space, and wherever they're intersecting is a hot point. Now, what this hot point is, a hot point is the maximum energy source which a person tends to see in a given space. That's what our ancestors thought about. And this is called the jewel of Indra. Wherever these points happen, they're called the jewels of Indra. So here, that's what we are doing. We are trying to, get the hot points marked. All these intersecting points are the hot points. And then we draw the circle, because that is the area of vision. And then we draw the arcs. These arcs are to see that the eye movement goes from inside to outside. And also, if you draw the other circle, the eye movement goes from outside to inside. Right? So here, this is where we come into nature again, where we see references of a 4-petal flower, or if you want to do a grid, then you draw a 3-petal flower. If you want to do a grid with 5-petal flower, then you take that reference as a point. So what happens here, what I've done is I've taken a 4-petal flower as a reference. 4 circles, half the width of the square, are placed inside the squares as shown. These also, again, they also represent the directions, because your explanation is in terms of the directions. So you say northeast, northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest, or north, south, east, west. So this circle representing a particular area of that space. Now what we're doing is we are trying to draw the visual areas. The circles are the visual areas. When you see this point, you actually see this circular space. Sorry. When you see this point, you see the circular space, and you see the circular space. But then what happens is you only are concentrating on this space. You're not concentrating on this space. So that's where these energy points come into picture, where it starts moving your eye from one point to the other, assisting you to see the whole picture. This is the simple complex drawing called the traditional yantra. Now here what happens is when you're wanting to do detailed work, you could actually, for each square, you can again divide it into 10 by 10, and so that you can again mark another closest hot point. Now here I would like to come back to the basics of human nature. Every one of us is aesthetically inclined. Everyone understands beauty. It's wrong to say that I don't understand beauty, I don't know aesthetics, because we try to select a color for our clothes. We select a design. We select some. We we buy things for our houses because we have an aesthetic sense, and there is a requirement for a certain thing. So we all have that basic aesthetic sense, but it varies from person to person. What we are trying to do with this particular grid is we are trying to see that everyone on earth, all human beings, come down to the same aesthetic essence of it. So it becomes easier for people to feel better with this grid, so that when you do a logo, say, you put it on the grid and then tweak it so that more hot points come into the grid, onto the logo spaces. Then the logo starts looking better. If you're doing a product design, then you use this grid so that you know the curves, where from where to where the curve is going to be there. Or, you have an idea and then you're putting that idea on this and then you're drawing it. I'll show you some examples of that little later. Now, these are drawings based on the square grid. Now, coming back to my calligraphy, I do small scribbles in my books. I have a whole lot of scribbling books with a parallel nib. I keep drawing scribbles, and then I start putting them on this grid so that the proportions are maintained exactly. So this is Durga, Amavaru. When I say Amavaru, is Mother Goddess. So this is how the drawing looks after it is put on the grid. That's Matsya. These are before I got into simplified drawings. I used to do very detailed drawings with the calligraphy pen, because my references were always from sculpture, and because they were sculpture related, I had to bring in the sculptural quality. I could manage to get the sculptural quality in my work by using a calligraphy nib. That's Matsya, final drawing. That's Chamundeshwari from Mysore. So what happens is when you're using a calligraphic nib, you start giving you start giving a space to the negative areas, and you're actually seeing the shadow area, which is the red line. This is the drawing of Garuda. Now we come to my other drawings. That's Anantasayana, Vishnu. That's the Shankha Chakras, Shankha and the Chakra. That's Lakshmi Amavaru here. And this is how the final drawing looks. Now coming to my actual drawings, though these are also, sorry, I'm used to the grid so much that I start using the hot points on the given space, and I start putting elements there, and that's where they look a little different. So this is Buddha under the people tree. That's Ganesha here. That's the trunk. This is the head. This is the ear. He's playing the drums. And the other people, musicians. That's Vishnu, the Tirupati Balaji with the Namam, the Shankh and the Chakra, and the two Vahanas, Hanuman and Garuda. This is Nandi, the bull, which is, the hump of the bull. The bigger the hump or those bulls are taken, and then they put a silver or a brass snake around the hump so that it is worshipped. And the idols are not taken, but the bull is paraded around in the temple, in the villages, and it is worshipped as Shiva. That's Krishna, the cowherd. This is Adinatha, the first Tirthankara of the Jains. Among the Jains, they don't, the figures are the same. The Tirthankaras all look alike. So they represent them by an animal or the Vahana or a symbolic thing. Adinatha is represented as the bull. And these are the feet of Adinatha. And Adinatha is represented here as a bull. And these are the lambs here. This is my latest Dashavatara. That's Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, Narsimha, Vamana, Parashurama, Rama, Balarama, Krishna, and Kalki, and that's Vishnu. There are two versions to this where Balarama is removed and Buddha is added. So that's a different story. That is Shiva with Nandi all around. We have a tradition in South where we light lamps in the temples. So these are lamps representing Shiva in the form of a shivling. Now coming to nibs. These are the nibs I use. They are dirty, but that's how they are. And later I stumble upon a few things so that I'll share that with you. These are the tools which I use. This is the container. These are available. These are from our side of North Andhra and Orissa, where these containers have three protruded, base things so that it's raised from above the ground. So these are plates which are used for food. So I use that so that I can exactly put it very close to the area where I'm working without spoiling my drawing. And you need a very heavy metal so that the ink doesn't spill or the bottle doesn't spill. So it's better to have metalware. So this is the vessel I use for my inks. This is something which is very unique and nice, which is from our temple vessels. This thing will not spill at all, no matter where you put this. So when you're doing very minute work, it's very easy to keep this very close to where you're working without spoiling your drawing. And then it's just dip and work, draw the lines. It becomes very, very handy. Now, coming to cleaning of the nibs. These nibs are very clean. These nibs are clean because I use the tissue paper that you get these, what is it called? The tissues, the wet tissues. And if you use the wet tissues to clean, your nibs become very clean. And then they hold ink better when you dip it back into the ink bottle. So the other way of washing the nibs is to dip it in warm water. But warm water spoils the nibs, so don't use warm water at all. When you buy new nibs, just clean it with a wet tissue paper, or put it in vinegar so that the ink sticks onto the paper. The gloss of during the manufacture, the gloss what the nib gets diminished and it holds better ink. Always use a metal container to wash your nibs. So what happens is, don't use the flat side of it for cleaning because it does not help. We tend to just swirl it in the water to clean, but it doesn't clean. What you need to do is this side of the nib, you hit it on the either side of the glass metal container so that you get a lovely sound. And that sound, when you hear, that means your nib is clean. If you get that flat thud, then your nib is not clean. It's only when you have that lovely sound of the nib hitting the metal container that means the nib is clean. Now, products based on the square grid. Now, going back to the grid and how the products are made, I'm just showing you the grid on the top left corner. We'll quickly go through this and how the product has been made. So you can actually use this grid for a lot of things. It is also used in temple architecture. You could also use for making measures of bricks. You can, the carving on the brick, to even the relief work in terms of how much you can actually do relief from the surface up. This is the traveling shrine where you open it up. So this is a Vaishnavite shrine. So there's a Garuda on top. There's a Shanku Chakra on it. There is a small medallion of Jagannath in this. So you could have Krishna, Vishnu, Rama, whatever. And then you just take it out, worship, put it back and keep it on the table. These are vessels of puja, prayer vessels. So I'll quickly go through them just to see how they work, the grid and the final product. So there's two metals, copper and brass. This is the lamp. This was done in Aurangabad, where you have the wick. This particular lamp, lights up with this oil content in this, lights up for about 3 hours. And this round thing on top is to douse the flame and to make it look little better than to have a burnt wick there. This is another lamp which we did in Aurangabad. This is a pedestal lamp, multi-wick lamp. So when you have the Shaivite, you'll have a Trishul here. This Vaishnavite, so you have Garuda. If you have Shakti, then you have a different element there. So it goes on. And when it comes to churches, we in South have a cross. That's the Agarbatti stand. This is for the dhoop. This is the camphor arti. So usually you need to have a stand. You're not supposed to put it down. So there's a stand to that. Then you have the udirna and the spoon. This is the vessel for flowers, which you take to the gods for offering. There's another option of the same thing, another design. This is it's got the marking of the feet of Vishnu. This is for prayers. This is the ghanta, the bell. This is the Jadaganta. This is what we use in North Andhra and Orissa, where Krishna Puja is done, Krishna and Shiva Puja. This is the Aarti stand with the peacock, because the reason for the peacock is it was designed for the Jagannath temple project. These are thalas, where when you're offering prasadam, it should not be offered in a plain plate. So some element of design some element of design related to the gods has to be there. So this has got a shank, and under the plate has got the chakra. Now, this is a very unique, which is there in most of our houses. You would see old vessels. These are there so that the plate should not touch the ground. There's a very scientific reason to that, but long explanation for that, so we'll cut it short. Now, the vessel what I use for my drawings is something like this. It has the projections, 3 projections under the vessel, so that it just stands on the drawing, and the white space is left in the drawing. There's the chembu, the glass. Ghoti is an Oriya Bengali name. This is Bindi, we call it a water vessel with a lid. And this is the Gulak. Gulak, I made it in metal so that kids could, their offerings to the gods could be collected over a period of time and then given to the temples. So that's what it is. Namaskaram. Hope you enjoyed it. And any questions, please do ask. And if time permits, I would like to take you to show my Ramayana and the Jagannath series. Kishore,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Very good, sir. Thank you very much. Very nice presentation.
thank you,
सर
thank you.
रामायण का इसका देखते हैं ना सर अपन.
Abhi, okay, you have time? Then
Yes, yes, no problem, sir. Only 1 hour. Please share screen. Yeah.
Can you see this?
Yes, okay. Yes, sir. Perfect. Thank you.
This is Jagannath of Sri Mandir. This is the story of Jagannath of Sri Mandir. Once in 9 years, what happens is the idols are changed. And the idols are made of neem trees. And these neem trees are from the forests in and around Puri, Daspala, and Nayagara areas. And the idols are made of the neem wood. The idols are Balabhadra with the mace and the tilling thing, and then this is Subhadra. This is Jagannath with Shankuchakra and Sudarshana. Now, there's an interesting story. When Krishna's ashes were brought, or Krishna's heart was brought, which was not, burnt when he was cremated, was kept in the Lingaraj temple in Bhubaneswar. And that's where Shiv Puja is done, because the asthis are always kept in a Shiva shrine. Krishna's ashes were kept there. And so there's one place where Harihara, Shiva is worshipped as Harihara, where Shiva and Vishnu are worshipped together. So this is in representation of that, where you'll find the idol of Jagannath in the Bhubaneswar temple there. So that's Trishul representing Shiva, and that's Jagannath with Shankuchakra. What happens is the king of Puri, who is the hereditary trustee of the temple, who ruled the country in the name of Vishnu, he ties the flag of, the flags are brought down from the temple top, and then they are tied on around their heads, and then they are sent out to different directions to search for 3 logs of wood, the 3 trees, one for Balabhadra, one for Subhadra Devi, and one for Jagannath. So here they go in bullock carts even today, singing and chanting the names of Jagannath. They search for a holy neem tree, and the neem tree should have a snake, the anthill where the snake is there, or there should be one snake, a cobra should be there, and there shouldn't be any nests on the tree. So such trees are taken, they worship, and then first with the golden axe of the temple, they cut the tree, they just strike the tree, and then with a silver axe and asking for forgiveness, then they start cutting it with the normal axe. This is the actual, how it looks, the golden axe at the Puri temple. I put, to make it little interesting, I put the Narsimha here, Narsimha drawing. This is a huge 3.5 feet golden axe, solid golden axe. After cutting the wood, the tree, they bring back the wood to the temple. And then they start making, after the idols are made, the other wood is used for making the chariots. In the temple, they have a Sudarshan Yantra on which the Jagannath's idol is kept. And they have a lamp in the temple which is lit up throughout the year. These are the idols of Balabhadra, Subhadra, and Jagannath, and this is Sudarshana. This is the idol of Neel Madhav. Neel Madhav is the Krishna idol, which was initially, which was lost in time, as the story goes. So they worship Krishna playing the flute. And this particular idol, what is being worshipped now, was made by my great-grandfather. This is the Chandan Yatra. This is the yatra where they do the worship of, they wash the idols every year. And then once the idols are washed with 108 bindis of water, because the idols are made of tamarind paste, there's a covering of tamarind paste and cloth on which it is painted. The cloth peels off, and that's why these, they put a Ganesha mask on top of these idols. And then only the Subhadra's idol is not masked, but Balbhadra and Jagannath's idols are masked with Ganesha mask. And then they are taken into the temple. That's where the Chitrakara community, who do the Patachitras, they come and repair the idols. And we are told that the god has fallen sick for 1 week. And that 1 week is actually the time when the craftsmen, repair the idols. When this is being done, another set of artists who go to, these are called Anvasara Pata. These artists go and make 3 different patas. Because the idols are not there in the Garbhagudi, patas are worshipped during that period. So this is one simple thing where there's no pomp and anything. There's a drummer who just drums so that people know there is gods being carried, because gods are being taken in as Patachitras. So there's an umbrella, and they quietly go from the side entrance of the temple. And as soon as they enter the temple, they're treated like gods, the patas. The patas are put in the Garbhagudi. They are human form. So that's Balabhadra, Subhadra, and Jagannath. These are my stylized drawings. So these are different versions. And that is the broom by which the king of Puri and the main trustee of the temple sweeps the chariots. This has got the marks of Lakshmi, the Shanku Chakra and the Padma. We in our traditional this thing, the broom is worshipped as Lakshmi, and because it is Jagannath's chariot. And there's another story where the king married the princess from south, because he wanted to, there's a story where the king of Puri wanted the princess of from the south to marry a sweeper. So the divan makes it a point to keep her in the palace till the Rath Yatra, and he gets him married to the king because he's the sweeper king. There's a story to that. This is the king sweeping the chariots. And then the idols are taken out from the temple for the Rath Yatra. They touch, they cajole, they move, they shake him up, because inside the temple they're not allowed to touch. This is the only time when a common man can go and touch the idols. Then this particular idol is taken onto the chariot. This is called the Nandi Ghosha. That's Subhadra's chariot. It's Devadalana. And then you have the chariot of Balabhadra. The Balabhadra chariot goes first, and then is protecting then the Subhadra's chariot, and the last one is that of Jagannath. Now, there's an interesting twist to the whole thing, because Krishna has gone with his sister, and he has not taken Lakshmi with him. Lakshmi comes out. There's a festival called Hira Panchami, when Lakshmi ji is taken out of the temple and she visits. She's looking for Krishna, so she's taken all around the city, all lanes of the city, and then taken to Gundicha temple, where Krishna is staying with his aunt. And they actually damage the chariot of Krishna because she's angry, and then she goes back to the temple. And once the holiday time of the gods has ended, and when they are returning back to the temple, on that day the pattas of which are being worshipped in the temple are left in the sea. And as they come back to the temple, Balabhadra and Subhadra are allowed into the temple. Jagannath is not allowed into the temple. And then they cajole Lakshmi ji, saying that please allow us to enter the temple. And then the story of Rasgulla starts there, when they offer one Rasgulla to the deity, and then Jagannath is allowed into the temple. These are the devotees of Krishna, the Ras Leela of Krishna, the Rukmini and Krishna Kalyanam. The whole festivities actually start with the Rukmini and Krishna Kalyanam in the temple. There's on one particular day during the Rath Yatra, just after the Rath Yatra, they take the idol of Jagannath in the temple pond. So that is what is being depicted here. This is an interesting story of Shiva being invited from Banaras to come to Puri. And then Krishna tells him, why don't you stay back here, because this should be Dakshin Kashi. And then Shiva stays back in Puri. So Shiva is facing west and Krishna is facing east. That's how the idols are kept there. That's Krishna in the form of 9 animals. And Arjuna gets so frightened seeing him, but then realizes it's Krishna, and it's a folklore from Eastern India. This is the most holiest symbol, the eye of Jagannath and the mouth of Jagannath, eye and the mouth of Jagannath. And this is the Neela Chakra. And this is the Aarti stand, which later what I showed you as a product got modified to that. Okay, there's time for Ramayanam. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can I show Ramayanam or no time?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can you see the slide?
No, sir. Please share.
Huh?
No, sir. Please share. Share screen, sir.
Now can you see?
No, no. No, sir. Full screen. Please, full screen.
Visible?
No, sir. Please again.
Yeah. application window.
All open. Please PPT open, sir.
Yeah, it's open.
Yes. Yes. No. No. Again. Please again, sir. No. No display.
No.
Totally open, sir. Screen PPT.
Yeah, it's open.
Please share.
Yeah.
Please wait. No. No, sir. No. Yes, but please wait. Wait. Please open PPT.
It's open.
It's not. Yes. Perfect. Yes. Good. Please big size.
PPT is open.
Yeah. Please big
Can you
size, sir.
see? Can you
Yes.
see that?
Yes. A small size. Very small
Okay.
size.
I'll open it. Now you can
Yeah.
see?
Yeah. Perfect. Sir, big size.
Okay.
Yes. Perfect, sir.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, this is a series which took me 7 years, and not that it is very great that it took 7 years, but I'll tell you why it took 7 years. Now, this is the story of Rama in the context of the South Indian version again. So, we start with the story of Rama being narrated by Shiva to Parvati Amavaru, and the sun is the witness to the whole thing. So that's why there's the sun, and then you have Shiva here, and Parvati is lying down on his lap and listening to the story of Rama. The story goes that the gods went to Vishnu, and then they said there's a problem on earth. So he says, "Okay, I'll go and do something about it." And then King Dashrath does a yagnam. The prasad is given to his three queens. At that particular time, Janak Maharaj finds Sita in his fields, and these are the two bulls representing, the field. Vishwamitra, Rama, and Lakshmana go to Janak Maharaj's court, and Rama breaks the bow. That's Rama Sita Kalyanam. That's Mother Kaikeyi and Mantra instigating, and then Mother Kaikeyi, asks Rama to be sent out. Sita joins Rama to go to exile. Then Lakshmana joins them to protect them. So this is the chariot, that's Lakshmana here. There's a small, portion here which differentiates between Rama and Lakshmana. Lakshmana's bow doesn't have that. Rama's bow has a little decoration to that. King Guha, the tribal chieftain who takes them across the river Sarayu. Maharaj Bharat comes back requesting Rama to return back to Ayodhya. And this is the feet of Rama. Here is the twist. Here in the southern tradition, we believe that Sita was left in the care of Agni. And then Rama, because you know exactly why he's coming down to earth, he leaves Sita in the care of Agni and goes to battle with Chaya Sita. And then he meets he sees the golden deer, and Sita wants the golden deer. So that story starts from here. Ravana comes to ask for arms, and Sita crosses the Lakshman Rekha and gives him the arms. Sita is abducted. and that's Jatayu, who is, who is injured. One wing has fallen off, and that's Ravana here. And this is where I got stuck. Hanuman, I couldn't draw Hanuman at all. It took me a long, long time. And all my drawings were ready except for the Hanuman. And I needed to do that. And it took me a very long time to do this. And one day I stumbled upon this drawing. And that's how it took me a long time, but then it started from here. So I drew my Hanuman. So here Rama and Lakshmanas meet Hanuman. Vali and Sugriva fighting. Surusa the snake, which stops Hanuman from crossing the ocean. See, it's actually a very small thing. You need to keep doing till you get it right, and then you add it to your narration. Hanuman is sitting here, he's waiting, he's come to Ashok Vatika, the Sita here. Hanuman sitting on his tail. This is Lanka Dahan, burning of Lanka with Hanuman's tail lit up completely. Building of the Ramasetu. Rama and Lakshmana worshipping Shiva at Rameshwaram before going to battle. At the battle, Lakshmana gets hit by a Nagpash of Indrajit. And then Lakshmana has fallen down here. That's Rama here, Hanuman and Jambuwanta. Now these drawings have a square head, but later when I revisited these drawings, the drawings changed completely. So I have another set of Ramayana now. That's Hanuman bringing the Dronagiri mountain. Kumbhakaran being woken up. Rama kills Ravana. This is all very shortened form of Ramayana. Then at Lanka, there is another Shiva temple where Rama and Lakshmana worship Shiva. Sita comes back from the care of Agni. See, in the northern tradition, it is that Agni Pariksha and all that. We don't have that in the southern tradition. We say she's come back from the care of Agni and then they return back to Ayodhya. Hanuman following them. And it is festivities in Ayodhya. Deepavali came much later. And then Hanuman stays back with Rama, Lakshmana and Sita. So that is my Ramayanam. Hope you all liked it.
हेलो
हेलो
हाँ स्क्रीन बंद हो गया सर आपका स्क्रीन से
हाँ खुला अभी
नो
now it's all right
नो सर प्लीज शेयर
नहीं I've finished the Ramayana is over
ओवर ना यस
yeah
थैंक यू वेरी मच सर अभी तक रामायण हमने देखा था सुना था पहली बार ये स्टाइल में देखा है थैंक यू वेरी मच क्वेश्चन में मैं एक बार ऑन करता हूँ सबके कैमरे ऑन कर देता हूँ एक सेकंड रेडी
second if
1 second सर
Hi Ramesh
Namaste Guruji.
Hi Ashok Namaskar
Hello. It was fantastic to hear you.
Hi Sharad any questions ask questions
मैं क्वेश्चन डिस्प्ले करता हूँ सर
okay fine
बाकी के थोड़ा सा सबके माइक थोड़ा सा कम करो बंद कर तो चलेगा स्क्रीन चालू रहने दीजिए मैं एक क्वेश्चंस लेता हूँ सर स्क्रीन शेयर करता हूँ मोइन सर
हाँ जी there's a question from Deepak J.
yeah
Is asking, sir, today you motivated us to start deep study for great creation.
Okay.
It's a
Now,
great
can I?
treat for us. Pranama to your devotion and the thanking. Thanks is thanking you. Okay.
Deepak, there is a interesting thing which I think we are missing out. As an art school, we are not taught traditional Indian art, nor are we taught about our Indian traditions. If you actually work with craftsmen, whatever religion, whatever caste, whatever the thing, you'll find a lot of information which we are losing out. This information has to be collated and kept so that for use of other artists and other traditions, it becomes easier. We are trying to set up an art and craft center in a village where we want to do this, where we want to document crafts of various people. Like, for example, I'll give you a simple example of weavers. Weavers are not there at all, they're losing out their jobs and they're not doing their work anymore. And only few weavers are working on things. Now, we need to give them design. Now, who gives them the design? We need to, as an art school and within a textile tradition in a school, to give them designs. That makes it, they'll have a new set of designs which will make them, their clothes be sold much more than the old traditional designs which are repeated every time. Similarly, for cobblers or so anybody, the basket weavers, whoever, the silversmiths in the villages, their designs are getting lost. And some person, he tries to copy them and then calls it, innovation in design and traditional rustic design, and then he makes money. The craftsman doesn't make money anymore. Rahul, yes, there is a scope of abstract calligraphy. There are few people who do abstract calligraphy, and actually a lot of them do abstract calligraphy. It actually depends on how you should not do the same what other people are doing, but try and create something new and unique so that your work is seen different and you are able to talk about it completely. You should be able to talk. Most of us, the problem even with me, it started that I was not able to talk about my work, and it took me a long time to understand and explain things the way I wanted to, without people misunderstanding and misrepresenting it.
Yes. Um, yes. Uh, Ashok, please mic on. Ashok
Guruji,
Hinge.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Guruji, I have a question.
Yes.
When did you choose minimalistic way to express your thought through your art, and how it is reaction from art lovers?
Okay. The story is like this. My first art teacher was Mr. A.K. Ramavarma of Cochin. He was my art teacher in Sainik school where I studied. He taught me how to do simplified sketching. He was a student of KCS Panikar, and he used to take us out, into the jungle. We used to go every weekend into the jungles trekking, and he would sit with his sketchbook and sketch, and he used to teach us how to sketch. So that was the first simplification what I learned. The second thing what I learned was from Princessa, who taught me how to write the Devanagari script. So in calligraphy, I had these two teachers. And the third teacher was Professor Lokhande, who taught me how to see what is good and what is bad. So these three people put together created an image which made me understand the simplification and how to actually give emotions to it. Added to that, I did applied art design, applied art course. So there was an process of education in terms of abstraction. So all this put together created a uh, background to the whole process. When I started writing the pothis, then I realized that when we doing pothi, and then one person came and said, "Arey, India doesn't have a calligraphic tradition." I said, no, it's not that. People used to write much before the other people in the world started writing, and we have not accepted that, that we have an old tradition in calligraphy. For example, you see Marathi. In the Devanagari script, people writing in Vidarbha region is different. The way they write in Marathwada is different. The way they write in other places is different. It is a particular community who has a reference in terms of the natural surroundings of that area, which creates a new style. So we all have a different tradition everywhere. Like for example, in Tamil, say we don't have a Tamil tradition, but we have Tamil tradition, we have the Kannada tradition, we have the Telugu tradition, but we slowly are trying to forget. Then what happened was there was we in Pothi writing we do a drawing next to it, which is done by another artist. So I thought, why not I do it with the same nib which I'm doing. So from there I started doing the homes, and then I started doing basic drawings of gods. And that's how a new set of designs got evolved over a period of time. And that's how a new set of drawings evolved. And now it is very unique in the world where nobody else is doing it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I've experimented with Jainism, Buddhism, then I've also tried with Christianity. I've done some in Islamic, the scripts. But now I'm sticking only because there's so much of work to be done. I'm only sticking to the Shaivism and Vaishnavism work mostly,
Mm-hmm.
because that is my cultural references.
Absolutely. And how is
Yeah.
the reaction from art lovers?
Oh, they love it.
Oh, must
There has
they
been
must love
two.
it. They must love it.
Hello. Yeah.
They
No.
must love
What has
it.
happened? Yeah. No, what has happened is when I had my Ramayanam show in Delhi, the women there who came, the ladies, they didn't like me at all. They said, "What is this? You're done drawings of Rama." And then there are a lot of people who thought, it is nothing very great. क्या कुछ समझ में नहीं आ रहा है. Then I said, wait, let me take you around. And then slowly, when I took them around, explained 2, 3 drawings, then they were able to understand everything.
Oh,
And then actually, a lot of people started becoming very emotional, and a lot of women, after they saw my work, and when I tried to tell them that in our tradition in South, we don't have the Sita being, Agni Pariksha and all that. We have Sita being left in the care of Agni, and then she returns back from Agni. So the people who had come there had a different outlook to Ramayanam, and they were very happy when they went back. Similarly, when I had a show in Brussels at the Sacred Art Museum, lot of Christians, when they saw the Jesus story, they were, their emotions welled up completely because they'd never seen such simplification and understanding of Jesus. There were about 14 drawings, 14 or 15 drawings of Jesus, the story of Jesus.
oh,
So people love it, they enjoy it, and
Yeah. Uh,
thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Ramesh? Yeah, Ramesh.
Uh, Sir, it is a wonderful journey we have experienced till now. You have explained all your thoughts, all your art creation, and we really
oh,
loved
thank
it.
you.
I hope the student from our institute are watching and they are enjoying too. I have a simple question for you. For example, now the student from our institute are ready to jump into the market and they want to, they are looking for a career. How this minimalistic art and calligraphy will help them to make their career as well as career it is not just a matter of like making money or um, career is like satisfaction, money,
Yeah.
and art.
Now,
It is a combination of all three. So
two
how
things.
this, yeah.
One is when we were in school, we were doing everything manual. For each assignment, we were doing 10 assignments, and then our teachers would give an average mark.
Mhm.
Right now that everyone is working on computers, you could actually do lot more variations in your assignments than earlier as we were doing. So your portfolio should have so many more ideas so that people who want to give you a job should also see the variations you can do in work. The second thing about minimalistic work is when you're doing trademarks and symbols. Anyway, the simplification, the practice of simplification or the understanding of simplification comes into play very subtly when you're doing logos and trademarks. The problem, what I see now is uh, people use a lot of screens, a lot of color, a lot of gradations and things like that when it comes to logos and trademarks because they think it is all digital so they can do whatever they want. But internationally, what is happening is people, the big companies which went into this type of designs are coming back to simplistic designs because that is then those designs can be used on different mediums. Like for example, you want to have say a fashion design logo needs to be put on a button or on a leather patch. If it needs to be embossed or laser etched, you can't have a screen because it's so tiny that it has to be a solid patch of color. So simplification has to be again created. You need to start thinking in those lines of simplification so that it becomes easier for people to for other craftsmen to work. They can't say we are designers and we are the best. Whatever we do is the best. We need to see what the craftsmen, the other craftsmen, how they're able to transfer it to work. Sorry. Now, for example, you have a color design and it gets printed on cloth. So you go to Surat and get it printed because that is the place where they do much of the printing. But they print it in such low resolution on cloth that it looks pathetic when it is mixed with a weaved pattern. So somewhere we need to actually, when we are designing for various mediums, and when we are working on a trademark or something, we also need to think in terms of how a particular variation can be done for a particular medium. And that's when that whole exercise of minimalistic and then simplification and all that comes into picture.
Okay.
That's really a good answer to the question. Hope this will definitely help our students from institute for their future career and guidance. Hope they will also get guidance in future too from your side as a senior.
Welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Sharad did
Ashok,
a
any
lovely
question?
drawing of mine.
सर एक क्वेश्चन है जयश्री बोल के एक क्वेश्चन, मेरा भी वही क्वेश्चन था।
Sure.
आपका जो रामायण है, महाभारत जो आपने जगन्नाथ यात्रा का किया है, इसके पहले कुछ आप स्केचेस करते हो क्या? क्या डायरेक्टली आप शुरू करते हो क्या? कैसा प्लानिंग करते हैं आप इसका करने का?
I have small books which I carry and I keep practicing with a parallel lip. So it becomes very easy to. This is how I work. These are my small books, and this is how I keep drawing.
Okay, sir.
And yeah, that's how I do my drawings. And then once I stumble upon a subject, then I keep working. So these are my cows, and this is when I was doing the Krishna work, Bhagavatam. So I keep doing such drawings, and then it is a long process.
Okay.
It's a long process, but it's interesting where you keep doing small scribbles, and then I collate all of them, and then see if I can relate it. Sorry, relate it to an narration, and then put them together.
Okay. Yes. यानी क्वेश्चन बहुत अच्छा मालूमात हुई है सर आपके बारे में। मुझे एक नया लोगों को बच्चों को सीखने को मिला है, बच्चा कितना कवर करते हैं उसमें से आणि आपको कितना फॉलो करते हैं ये तो आगे का समय ही बताएगा। तो एनी क्वेश्चंस अशोक, मोइन?
Any more questions which have come, I'd like to answer, no problem.
ओके
Sir, it was a divine process to see you handling nips and washing nips.
See, the problem is the nibs are very expensive.
Yeah,
And I see when I do my drawings, for every drawing I need to, 3-4 nibs get spoiled because there's so much of pressure which is applied so that the ink, the density of ink goes onto the paper. The nibs start bending. That is one. And the second thing is, if you don't clean the nib, you can't use it again. So because I use synthetic inks, the calligraphic inks, Vincent and Newton calligraphy inks, they need to be cleaned immediately. Otherwise, it becomes a problem. That is one. Second thing is, we somehow need to, use our own traditional vessels so that it gives a different feel to the whole process of creating new work.
absolutely.
Now, other vessel, what I found very interesting is you can use a whiskey glass because whiskey glass has a thick, heavy body at the bottom. So the chances of it tilting and spoiling a paper is less.
Okay.
The problem with all of us is we have not invested in that area of work. We're only using that cloth. We don't want to use a tissue paper because if you use a tissue paper, the tissue paper absorbs the water completely. If you use a cloth, what happens is still there is traces of water, and then your nips get spoiled because it starts getting rusted.
Oh,
And you can't afford to, now each nib is about 200 rupees now, the Japanese nibs which have come, but they're so good nibs. Now, if you spoil that nib for every 2-3 pages of work, not worth it. It's too expensive.
ओके
great, great.
थैंक यू वेरी मच सर। बहुत अपने सिंपल लैंग्वेज में और सिंपल फॉर्म में बताया है सब। मैं क्लोजिंग
Hello.
करने के लिए हाँ यस सर।
Nini, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure being with all of you. And I thank everyone. We have studied in a great institution, and our teachers have taught us well, and we need to take it further now. And then we need to be proud of our institution so that everyone in the country knows from where we are. So they should know there is a school called Government School of Art, and then we are proud students of that institution.
Absolutely
थैंक यू।
correct.
मैं क्लोजिंग के लिए शरद वाडकर को बोलता हूँ सर के थैंक्स। शरद, शरद आवाज आ रही है?
हाँ यस सर, यस सर, यस सर,
यस,
मुझे आवाज आ रही
गुड
है?
फॉर थैंक्स। हाँ आ रही है, बोलिए।
Okay. Sir, thank you so much for your valuable words and presentation. This session really benefited to all the young talented artists. So once again, thank you so much, sir.
Oh, you're welcome. Welcome.
थैंक यू वेरी मच सर, थैंक यू वेरी मच, थैंक यू ऑल ऑफ यू।
Thanks a lot,
Thank you
Guruji.
for the good get together we have had today, and hope you all enjoyed.
Thank you, Raghu sir.
And we'll meet again soon, next week or after 10 days
थैंक यू
for the next speaker.
थैंक यू वेरी मच ऑल ऑफ यू, थैंक
Thank
यू।
you. Thank you.